Transfer portal names are starting to kick in, and not only are they starting to kick in, more options are also starting to be seen. Let's talk about who's committed, who could be next, and maybe a little bit of a surprise in the room as well.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Reminder about college football on TNT. Doesn't get any better than that. That is starting December 21st. Check it out again with college football. It is here. We got our first real playoffs, and I could not be more excited. Check it out, TNT and True TV, and good stuff. Okay, now let's talk a little bit of Arizona football. Excuse me. We are going to talk almost exclusively portal names, possible returnees. You name it, we've got it on this show. Now, there's also been some commitments, so we're going to talk about that as well. The first one is not a transfer portal player. He is a guy that is in the portal, or that was in the, he decommitted from Purdue. Sawyer Anderson, a man of two first names. And again, this obviously isn't Robert McDaniel. This is a guy that is, well, I mean, we'll be honest here. Probably not the greatest prospect in the world, but you got to get depth. You had to be able to bring in two quarterbacks in this class, and this is exactly what Sawyer Anderson does, along with Luke Haugo. I don't want either one of those guys starting. As a matter of fact, if they are starting, that is a massive problem for Arizona, but it is what it is. Sawyer Anderson, though, coming in here, was committed to Purdue. Purdue's obviously got a new football coach. We will see how this plays out. Low three-star kid, kind of like Luke Haugo, but you know what? He's totally different. He's a shorter guy, not big. There's a lot of different things about him, but either way, a commitment. Arizona had to be able to get some kind of depth in there, and who knows? Kid out of Texas, maybe you hit. I almost said you get lightning in a bottle, but either way, that will be an interesting one to check out. Now, Arizona has gotten some commitments here. The first one we need to talk about, Javion Cole. Javion Cole out of Texas now. Played for Brent Brennan at San Jose State. At San Jose State, he was a very, very good DB. He was one of the top portal prospects in the entire country. What happens a lot of times, though, when these guys go to Texas or a school like that is that they are, you know what? It's kind of a wake-up call because they're generally not as good. It's generally not as easy at the University of Texas because they recruit at a drastically different level. But as we're going to continue to talk about, this does not mean that at Arizona he cannot be incredibly useful, though. And listen, there's going to be a lot of spots that are going to be available. And I think that's where it's going to be fascinating because when it comes to this, your entire secondary is basically gone. You got to bring in Javion Cole. You got to be able to bring in, and you're going to get to somebody else here in a second. You've got Marquise Groves Killebrew coming back. You've also got some other dudes as well. But either way, you get the point. There's a lot of playing time to be had, and when I say there is a lot of playing time to be had, there is a lot of playing time to be had. So there's that. Now, the other one, too, that you've also got to look at, I think, is you've got to also look at somebody like a Michael Dansby. Now, Dansby's interesting in all of this. Dansby had, if you just look at his stats, played a lot at San Jose State, but he wasn't very good. That's just it. If you ask San Jose State fans, they will freely admit to you that he was not very good and that they weren't very impressed by what he was able to do. If he's coming in here at Arizona, he is you do not want him being one of your two starting. You do not want him being one of your two starting guys. That's kind of where it's at. Now I do think we're kind of at the stage too where that listen, you're going to have to stack it MGK, Javion Cole, probably going to be your starting corners. But at the same time, I think you've also got to look at it, though, and say that you got to get better players in there. Dansby is depth. I'm fine with Dansby as depth, but that's essentially the extent of where I'm what I'm talking about, though, when I'm looking at somebody like Dansby. Then the other thing, too, like I said, you've got to be able to get better players. You got to be able to get like you lost a lot of guys. You're not going to be able to just replace dudes like this. But yes, I do think that I do think that you do get this. So we will find this out. Now, I do think that we are kind of at the stage two. I think we are kind of at the stage two where you also need to look at and say, who else are you bringing in? Now, the other one is Chancellor Owens, defensive end of Chancellor Owens. Now, again, here's where I'm at with these. Here's where I'm at with portal players. And I think the other thing, too, is that with portal players, you've got to be able to do one of two things. You've got to be able to either get a better guy in there, or you've got to be able to get somebody in there that was at a power five or a power four that is just not kind of, how do I put this? You got to be able to get somebody in there that was either a contributor at a big time level at a smaller school, or you got to get somebody in here that was at a Power 4 school, like a Big Bill Norton, for example. BBN is a perfect example. I do not care if Big Bill Norton could not play at Georgia. That means absolutely nothing to me. Yeah, because again, Georgia, we will take all of the players that could not play there. If you want to give me all of Georgia's second string, you can give me all of Georgia's second string, and I will be more than okay with that. That's kind of where I'm at with this one. Now, the other thing, too, that I think we also need to very, very much talk about, too, is who can you get then? Because, again, you've got a lot more guys. So at the secondary level, that's kind of where you're looking at right now. You got Javion Cole. You got Michael Dansby. I would assume that MGK is coming back. So that's right now, those are your three corners. And I think that's you could say, is that good enough? Is that not good enough? I'm gonna leave that all up to you. But so there is that. You also got to get safeties in here. You got a lot of different needs, obviously. Chancellor Owens, though. Listen, you need Arizona didn't have good pass rushers last year. Help doesn't help when you run off two of your best linemen, but that kind of is what it is. Just kind of is what it is at this stage. But either way, that's kind of where it's at with those guys. Now, there are going to be a lot of players that are going to be visiting. Now, before we get into that, also just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. It looks like Jacob Manu will probably end up in SRS, smelly, rainy Seattle. That's his only visit scheduled. Boo! Go anywhere else but SRS. And Gunnar Maldonado going to probably, right now he's visiting Indiana. Tacario Davis, Texas A&M, Miami, Moy probably Auburn. And on top of that, you're also probably looking at Emmanuel Carnley, who can somehow go wherever he wants. That one is one that surprised me. I did not see that one being the case, but be that as it may, he can go absolutely. He's going to be able to go to a lot of different places. So that's kind of where we are at right now with the players that are on the roster and what they're going to be doing. We talked about Noah Fafita yesterday. We'll continue to keep you updated on that one. Now, let's talk a little bit now about players that are going to be entering or that are going to be visiting. But first. Let's talk about something that we definitely need to talk about here. FanDuel. Check it out. FanDuel. FanDuel.com. All right, here's the deal. You got the NFL, you got the NBA, you got all kinds of different stuff going on with FanDuel. And again, at FanDuel, you can put down $5 if you're a new customer. Keep in mind, got to be a new customer. You put down $5, you can get $150 in free plays if that bet hits. Come on, it's that simple. Yeah, go with something that you're like, you know what? I feel really good about this. I'm watching this game, and I'm like, I think people are missing the boat on this one a little bit. That's where FanDuel says, come in here, help us out. So either way, check it out. And again, you got college football playoffs coming up here, which we're going to talk about here shortly. So you got all of that and more with FanDuel. You know that your money is good. Not only do you know that your money is good, you know that it's a fun time. If you're thinking during the game, man, there's something that I think I could do right here. That's where you want to check it out at FanDuel.com. Another one of these ones. You'll thank me later. And PrizePicks. All right, here's the deal with PrizePicks. Download the app today. The great thing with PrizePicks too is you can use code LOCKEDON and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Here's the deal. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Yummy, yummy. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. And again, PrizePicks, run your game. PrizePicks is a lot of fun. A lot of people use PrizePicks. The great thing about PrizePicks too is that, again, it is fun. So again, check it out. Another one of these ones. You're going to thank me later. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about where we're at then with some of these players that are going to be visiting. We got something. All right, so here's the names. Obviously, Luke Wysong is already committed. Guy from New Mexico. Good wide receiver, good football player. Trey Spivey is going to be visiting. Kid out of Chandler. Looked like he was going to go to Arizona for the longest time. Went to Kansas State. Didn't exactly light it up, but again, Arizona just needs bodies at this point. You need bodies. You need to be able to get players in here that can play. So there's that, and who knows? Maybe he emerges a little bit. I think with Seth Dagey, there's a little bit of a a little bit of an unknown, maybe a little bit of an excitement aspect to him. But Trey Spivey is one of those guys that I think they'd like to be able to bring in. If you've already got Luke Wysong, you got Chris Hunter, then you also got Jeremiah Patterson. Do not forget about Jeremiah Patterson, and we'll find out. Now, I think one question is, are you going to be able to get somebody like Kean Burnett back? I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. Can you get somebody like Burnett back? I mean, he's got that connection there. But if you're Burnett, you've already been burned by Arizona once. So are you really going to do that again? I don't know the answer to that one. I guess we will see. We will find out. But I don't know that I don't know that you look at that and say that's the answer for you. So we'll see. But then Trey Spivey is one. Then you got some other guys as well. You got Tristan Bonds, offensive lineman from Michigan. And again, this is where I'm going to keep coming back to. If you're going to miss on linemen, miss with Power 4 guys. That is a big thing for me. I want Power 4 football players that have played at big-time schools. Because again, just because they don't play at Michigan doesn't mean that they can't play here and back the A. So there is that. Now, let's talk a little bit about where we were at then with some of these other players. You got Lolo Tago, offensive lineman from USC. Another one. Just because they're not good enough to play at USC doesn't mean that they're not good enough to come here and back the A. I am in on that. That is fine with me as well. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know that any of these guys are good, but I at least think that there's more potential than bringing in the diamond in the rough from New Mexico State that only played half the time, but he's got good physical measurables. This is the kind of stuff that I'm looking at. So we will find that one out. You got Tomia Durawaje, I'm not going to even try to pronounce that name, from FSU, D lineman. We'll see that one as well. He's going to be visiting. It's not a bad visitor list, honestly. Now, the one thing Arizona does have to go for it, though, is that Arizona can promise playing time. And that's a big thing. Arizona can promise playing time. And we know you can promise playing time. You're going to get some guys that have just been tired of been sitting on the bench the entire time. And, they want to be able to get playing time in, and that's Arizona can offer that. So that's a big part. That's a big part of all of this that I think people need to keep an eye on. Now, who else could you get? We're going to find out. There's going to be more players that are going to be. There's going to be more players that are going to be visiting. Now there's a couple really big time ones. Wayshawn Parker from Washington State. He's down to Arizona and Utah. His position coach, though, is going to Utah. So generally, I would imagine that he is going to end up at Utah. If you're Utah, you've got him. You've also got Devin Dampier. You kind of retooled that offense, so there is that. That will be interesting to see how that does play out. But it's going to be interesting, though, for Arizona. I like that they are going after linemen that are, like I said, from Power 4 schools, bigger ones, just because they didn't play there. I don't really care. But you just got so many different aspects that you have to address. The first one, obviously, you need to know what's going on with Noah Fafita. Is Noah Fafita coming back? If he's coming back, what kind of offense are you going to be running behind him? Seth Dagey, I think you can figure out. He knows what he's doing. So that's going to be interesting. Now, the offensive linemen, you got to bring in 5 new starters. Now, you could say, and I think this is fair, I think Big Rhino is a starter. I don't have any problem with Big Rhino. I also don't have any problem with not just Big Rhino, but Deuced. Those are the dudes, though. Those are the guys that I feel okay starting with. I don't really feel very comfortable starting some of those other guys. I know the staff likes Michael Wooten. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that does play out. But I'm not totally dismissing it. But I'm not thrilled by it either. I'll put it to you like that. So there's obviously that. Now, when it comes to what you're going to do then at the running back spot, I don't worry too much about that. I doubt Arizona gets Wayshawn Parker. But again, you got Kedrick Reesino. I like Kedrick Reesino. He's a good football player. I also like, I think, and we've talked about this before, whoever Alonzo Carter brings in, I believe Alonzo Carter is going to do just fine there. It's the other positions. You got to be able to fill out the line, and you got to be able to get difference makers at receiver. Like I said, I like bringing in Luke Wysong, Chris Hunter. You got to be able to hold on to him, and I think that you could be in pretty good shape. Then on the defensive line, obviously, you need an entire overhaul, basically. I like Isaiah Johnson. He just gets hurt a lot. That's the problem with Isaiah, but I don't think that he's bad. I know the coaching staff loves Chuba. I don't see it, but whatever. They'll go with what they're going to go. Trey Smith's not bad. He's okay. And then at the linebacker, you got Tay Brown, who's not bad, but you're going to have to supplement that. You're going to have to bring in a lot of different guys. And then, as we talked about too in the secondary, you got a lot of holes. Javion Cole is a start. Again, I think that he and MGK you could do worse at corner. The safeties, though, Dalton Johnson, gone. Gunnar Maldonado, gone. Genesis Smith, gone. Those are that's kind of where we're at. So we will find that one out. Okay, now now let's talk a little bit about what expectations are then for this team. What should we be looking at? What should we be saying to ourselves? That's a good fit for Arizona. That's something that Arizona could rely on, because I think there's a lot of questions about what is that fit for Arizona, because I don't really know of a lot of this. What exactly are you looking for? Because again, this is just there's a lot of holes. But before we get into any of those expectations, let's talk about something else that everybody knows about. College football on TNT, my friends. It's that time of the year. The college football playoffs is back. Okay, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT's sports coverage of the college football playoffs begins December 21st, my birthday, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns and a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoffs presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Again, college football, I love this. 12, you got 12 teams in here. Now, Arizona's obviously not in there, but you know what? We're playing the long game. But check it out. Again, this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to have very much of an NCAA tournament type feel to it. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what expectations are for Arizona football this coming season. Listen, the offense has to be better. I know you're losing T-Mac. I know you're losing Jonas Sabanea. I know you're losing Wendell Moy, Josh Baker. But that offense this past year was disgusting. There was no way around it. Noah didn't play well, but at the same time, I also don't know that I'm going to throw a ton of that on Noah because I thought that it was a super inept coaching staff. So there is that. But the offense, again, it's like we talked about. I need to have a semblance of an idea of knowing what you're doing. I'm not asking for a lot here, but I need to know. I need to kind of have an idea what you're doing. And if I don't know what you're doing, then it's another issue. But watching Deji, I don't think that we're going to have those concerns. And then defensively, it's. Just don't be awful. How about that? That's kind of where, just don't be like dead last or one of the two worst in the, if, just don't be one of the two worst defenses in the conference. If you're like ninth or 10th, I'll take it. Because again, you don't have a lot to work with. You basically hemorrhaged every good player that you have. And we will see. Now, I think some people are asking, who could maybe be somebody that comes back. I'm not sure because a lot of these dudes are going to look to get paid. Again, we mentioned Kean Burnett. Maybe. Again, I have no inside information on that. Traden Stukes, maybe you're talked back into it. Maybe a gunner, somebody like that. I don't know. I don't know who you could look at, though, and say that they might be coming back. So I think that you've got to look at this from the perspective that you need to be able to bring in everybody possible, and you need to be able to try to get difference makers. If you can do that, then I think you're probably in a little bit better shape than I think some people thought. But overall, this is not going to be a good defensive team. I'd be stunned by it. A lot of people are talking about Danny Gonzalez, what the deal with Danny Gonzalez is. Listen, Danny Gonzalez failed up. At Arizona, if he gets the DC job. Now, you could say, and that's not totally fair because I think he did a decent job at ASU as the DC, but as a linebackers coach here, he was terrible, and the special teams unit was also terrible as well. I think that's why a lot of people are very skeptical about Danny Gonzalez in the DC role, but it is what it is. I don't know that a ton of people are beating down the door to get that job, though, either, so you got to factor that one in as well. Now, when it comes to where we are at now with this squad, what we could be hoping for, I don't know. I mean, that's the question. That's the $1 million question that I think everybody is still trying to figure out. What does improvement look like? Is it 4 wins? Is it 5 wins? Is it at least knowing what you're doing? Is it losing every game 56-38, but at least showing some life on offense? I don't know. And I think that's the question that so many people are still trying to figure out. And I think we'll find out. Listen, Brent Brennan basically he batted an O for this year. His entire staff batted an O for. And honestly, when you look at what they did, from an off the field, on the field perspective, this is just a unit that is not. It's just a unit that's not very good. And it's a coaching staff, I think, that just kind of showed across the board that it was in over its head in its first year. And I think that's what surprised a lot of people. Generally, when you are a coach and you're in over your, you've been around for a while, there's an adjustment period, but there's not that kind of adjustment period where it's like, oh man, this is all bad. This is terrible. There's really no other way to put it. So we will find that one out. Now, tomorrow, we're going to talk about Arizona basketball. We're going to talk about where we need to, what we need to be able to do to be able to get this thing back on track. I think you can probably tell at this point there's going to be a lost season for Arizona. I'd love to be wrong, but there's obviously some glaring holes here that Tommy Lloyd's going to have to address this offseason. You're also just going to have to get better players in there across the board. You're going to have to get NBA talent. We are going to talk about that and more charity scholarships, guaranteed minutes, etc., because I don't think that that's just good for a program or the program's identity as a whole. So there's obviously that as well. But as always, Very, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. And again, got a lot to get to tomorrow. We're going to talk almost all basketball. Got a post-game show coming up as well. But thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow.